Okay, so some shelves are organized a little bit better than others. This first one was, as I said, mostly history, although you did see a number of exceptions. This one is much more miscellaneous, and it's just a little bit of everything. So I'll start at the top here. A House in the Country by Jorge Amado. New Testament History by F.F. Bruce. The Age of Empire by Eric Hobsbawm. Cultural Amnesia by Clive James. The Portable Kristeva. Robertson Davies' The Rebel Angels. Anne Radcliffe's The Italian. I'm going to see if I can just sort of hold these up. Pulling them out on the very top is a bit of a pain. The Americans, The Democratic Experience by Daniel J. Boorstin. The Discoverers by Boorstin. Here we have Julian Barnes's Arthur and George. On China by Kissinger. 2 volumes of Kenneth S. Davis's biography of FDR. We have his volume from 1882 to 1928, and then 1923 to 1937. A volume of Robert Caro's biography of LBJ, The Means of Ascent. Practical Criticism by I.A. Richards. The End of the 20th Century, and The End of the Modern Age by John Lukács. The Oxford School. The Complete Poems by Coleridge. The Glorious Cause by Middlecoff. Erich Fromm's Psychoanalysis and Religion. Denise Levertov's The Poet in the World. Bruno Bettelheim's The Use of Enchantment. Linda Murray's Michelangelo. The Trial of Socrates by I.F. Stone. Not Out of Africa by Mary Lefkowitz. Henry Commager's The American Mind. Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. John Steinbeck's In Dubious Battle. And Isaac Bashevis Singer's More Stories from My Father's Court. Okay. Some of these are a little hard to pull out, so if I can see... maybe this will work, I don't know. Okay. William Trevor's Death in Summer. Pull a couple out. This is William Trevor's Fools of Fortune, and The Man of Mode by George Etheridge. Okay, this should be a little bit easier. Anita Bruckner's Falling Slowly. Brian Gibbons's Jacobean City Comedy. Jacobean City Comedy. Touchstones by Mario Vargas Llosa. Criticism. Angela Carter's Shaking a Leg. Edward Bellamy's Looking Backward. Stephen Craig's The Red Badge of Courage and Other Stories. The Revenger's Tragedy by Cyril Tournier. Aunt Julia and the Scriptwriter by Mario Vargas Llosa. Basil in the Age of Burckhardt, A Study in Unseasonable Ideas by Lionel Grossman. Freedom's Battle, The Origins of Humanitarian Intervention. Secrets by Cicely Bach. The first volume of the 2-part biography of Stalin called Young Stalin by Simon Montefiore. William Trevor's Felicia's Journey. Milton Rokech's The Three Christs of Ypsilanti, Rosemary Radford Ruether's Sexism and God Talk, Mark Twain's Life on the Mississippi, Alan Debusse's The Chemical Philosophy, Maury Klein's The Power Makers, Steam, Electricity, and the Men Who Invented Modern America, Luc Bresson's How Philosophers Saved Myths, Alain Besançon's The Forbidden Image, An Intellectual History of Iconoclasm, The Eye of the Lynx, Galileo, His Friends, and the Beginnings of Modern Natural History by David Friedberg, Plato, An Introduction by Paul Friedlander, A Preface to Plato by Eric Havelock, Satan in Gore by Isaac Bashevis Singer, Wieland or the Transformation, An American Tale and Other Stories by Charles Brockton Brown, Christ and the Spiritual World and the Search for the Holy Grail by Rudolf Steiner, Ratification, The People Debate the Constitution from 1787 to 1788 by Pauline Maier, The Collected Poems of T.S. Eliot, 1909 to 1962, From Democrats to Kings, Michael Scott, The Spiral Staircase, My Climb Out of Darkness by Karen Armstrong, William Kennedy's Billy Phelan's Greatest Game, William Kennedy's Quinn's book, William Kennedy's Very Old Bones, Mohammed Charlemagne and the Origins of Europe by Richard Hodges and David Whitehouse, and this beautiful sort of coffee table picture book called The Face in Medieval Sculpture. Okay. On Literature by Umberto Eco. History Play, The Lives and Afterlife of Christopher Marlowe by Rodney Bolt. Wonderful book of criticism called 7 Types of Ambiguity by William Empson. What Can I Do When Everything's on Fire by Antonio Loba Antunes. The Ancient Greeks by Stephanie Lynn Bouden. The Catcher in the Rye. The First Salute, A View of the American Revolution, Barbara Tuchman. The 17th Century Literature Handbook, edited by Robert C. Evans and Eric J. Sterling. Wolfram von Eschenbach's Parsifal. Stanley Fish's book-long analysis of Paradise Lost called Surprised by Sin. Northrop Frye's Anatomy of Criticism. Umberto Eco's Serendipities, Language and Lunacy. This is some Old English drama, She Stoops to Conquer and Other Comedies, put out by Oxford. Rudyard Kipling's Tales of Horror and Fantasy, edited by Neil Gaiman. N.T. Wright's The Resurrection of the Son of God. Henry Roth's Call It Sleep. Tell Me How Long the Train's Been Gone by James Baldwin. The Early Church by Henry Chadwick. Ake, Years of Childhood by Wole Soyinka. The Spanish Tragedy by Thomas Kidd. Alain Besançon's The Rise of the Gulag, Intellectual Origins of Leninism. Paul Ricoeur's Freud and Philosophy, an Essay on Interpretation. 2 novels by Heinrich Böll, The Safety Net, and Billiards at 9:30. Poetic Meter and Poetic Form by Paul Fussell. The Italian Renaissance, Culture and Society in Italy by Peter Burke. Capitalism and Modern Social Theory, an Analysis of the Writings of Marx, Durkheim, and Max Weber by Anthony Giddens. The Culture of Western Europe, the 19th and 20th Centuries by George L. Moss. Some short stories by Chekhov, The Fiancé, and others. Selected writings of Samuel Johnson. The Forsyte Saga by John Galsworthy. Don Casomuro by Machado de Assis. The House Behind the Cedars by Charles W. Chestnut. And I actually do have both volumes, but this is just volume 1. The other is a few shelves down. The Norton Anthology of Modern and Contemporary Poetry, volume 1, edited by Jahan Ramazani, Richard Ellman, and Robert O'Clair. So that's the first 3 rows of this shelf. I'll come back later, but this is all for tonight. Bye, guys.